This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is December 2nd, 2024. Just a couple more weeks left in the year. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I want to talk about the U.S. federal government policy on Social Security. I want to focus on three areas that I think are important to you that no one is talking about. Who are the people that Social Security and the government are talking about are paying into Social Security? That's the first thing. Second thing, are the numbers right from Social Security? And then the third thing, which is the most mind-boggling, is why is Social Security so complicated? Now let's start with this first one. Now, we know that if you are working a job, you are paying into Social Security. And you're currently paying 12.4%. Now, a little bit of the debate is over the category of people, because I don't want to throw a label and say rich people, okay, because that term is thrown around too much. It only applies to the $160,200 of your earnings. So in theory, someone could be only paying into Social Security for the first 2 months of the year. And of course, I found an example of that, and I will talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so currently, this is what Social Security is promoting, is this notion right there. Now, the mainstream media has been portraying it this way. This is what the discussion points have been over. Increasing revenues. That was increased Social Security revenues to increase the amount of payroll taxes collected. Okay, that would be on the working class. Also, raising the wage cap so that higher income earners pay more in payroll taxes. The other thing is creating a new system. Then creating a lockbox. And then finally, tax and Social Security benefits. Now, the reason that I'm bringing up this briefly is because if you tune into any of the mainstream channels or even the newspapers, next year, that's what they're going to be talking about. And this is more of a focus on the working class, trying to get them to pay more money. That's significant to me is because the higher earners, that's not going to change theirs. There's only one way to change theirs. And I will tell you that in a moment. And this concept is important of who's paying, because I believe that we, the people, are not being told exactly who they're talking about, who's paying. So let me explain that before I move on. If you are currently not working and you earned a high amount of money, you are not paying into Social Security. Why? Because it's covered under the payroll taxes associated with that. So in theory, somebody who's had a good career and stops working at the age of 40 can live off of a savings account. And there's another way too that I'll bring up here in a second. So we need to define better who we are talking about who's paying into Social Security, because who we thought of from 10 years ago is different now. And we're not talking about that some people have money and they are actually not paying themselves a salary, thus they're not paying. Secondly, Are the numbers right from Social Security? I would say no. So currently, based on the data from the Social Security Administration, they say roughly 6% of workers covered by Social Security earn above the taxable maximum each year, right? Meaning that while wealthy individuals can still collect Social Security, a very small percentage of their overall income is actually derived from it due to the cap on taxable earnings. Now, part of that's true, the cap on taxable earnings, but what I'm telling you is that people making more money could reach a point where they're not actually taking a salary. If you're not taking a salary, then you're not paying the payroll taxes. Okay, now let's delve into something else from Social Security. The Social Security system has a maximum amount of income that is taxed for benefits, so high earners can only pay Social Security taxes on a portion of their income. Now, that's true. Now, they use the word high earners. Define that again for me. Why? I know personally two people who have paid into Social Security. They're in their 50s and they only pay the first 10 months of the year. Why? Because after that point, they've paid in the maximum amount. And they are not millionaires. That's why I'll say again, we need to redefine who, in fact, we are talking about. Because maybe the $168,600 is too low, but I'll come back to that. And also, why is it that people are targeted if they are perceived to make a lot of money? Because when you watch the mainstream medias, you always say, well, it's rich people. And they name people like athletes, TV personalities. Would it surprise you that if you are in Congress, Congressperson makes, and this is public information, $175,000 a year? Well, guess what? Probably at the 10-month point, they're not paying into Social Security. Now, when the Social Security is talking about these things, they are really targeting wealthy people or trying to give you the perception of these people aren't paying enough into it. However, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because what they should say is that they are not paying into the payroll taxes because they don't need to, because they have money to live off of. Now, why is Social Security so complicated? As I've said, Social Security needs to define who's rich and who's actually in the middle class. Because when we put this cap on that, we've actually gotten into the lower middle class, right? And what I mean by that is, if you are a government civilian and you are a senior manager, since I know that world a little bit, I can look at it. And to tell you the truth, I didn't realize that the threshold of payroll tax of the people who are actually eligible for reaching the cap, I had no idea that that's how it was. Now, the other complicated part is, and Congress did this, they say, okay, they don't have people pay on their unearned investment income. So they gave a crazy example of Tim Cook, who was the Apple CEO. And what they said was that in 2 months, he had already paid the maximum in. So for the other 10 months of the year, he didn't even pay in. Now, again, don't penalize people for making a lot of money. Don't focus on that part. Focus on people being part of something big that everybody should be paying into, and it shouldn't matter how much money they're making, perhaps. So, and in the example I gave you, so if you were a maximum putting in taxable earnings since you were 22 and you worked up until 70 to get Social Security, you would be getting $5,000 a month. But I would submit to you that people who are higher age earners are not collecting on Social Security. And like the second point I made about Social Security giving you accurate numbers, they can only give you accurate numbers if the full population is actually participating. So again, if you've made enough money and you don't have a job and you're living off of your savings account, you're living off of investments that you've earned, no one is going to capture that data. So to summarize, these are the things that we need to be talking about. We need to be talking about and defining who we think has the money, and that threshold is something that Congress should look at. And what road did we go down where they would cap it? Well, in my opinion, they're capping it because they know that that affects them too. They do not want to pay into Social Security. They make $175,000 a year, and like I told you, by the 10-month period, they're probably not paying for the last 2 months. And government has to give people the facts. And the mainstream medias have to give them the facts too, because currently, as I've told you, the target that they're looking at are the people who have always paid in, and ironically, they are the people who get the less amount of benefit from it in general, and then the others are capped, and like I said, the threshold is actually lower than you would think. Oh, and before I leave, please subscribe to my channel. And then the second thing is, let me know what you think in the comments. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Let me know what you think.